Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Varsity Tutors Star Course series, where today we have the pleasure of being rejoined by the team at Flamingo Gardens, Botanical Gardens, and Wildlife Sanctuary to learn about a scaly, in some cases kind of scary creature that makes the Everglades its home, the alligator. We're going to have the opportunity to get an up-close encounter with some of the creatures under the care of Flamingo Gardens, and along the way, we'll learn more about these fascinating creatures. Now, before I hand it off to the team at Flamingo Gardens to get us started, I want to make sure we are prepared to be as collaborative as possible in today's live lesson. So, a few things to keep in mind. As we move through the lesson, you'll likely have some questions, and the team will have some questions for you as well. So, feel free to use the chat panel to the right-hand side of your live learning platform to ask any questions that you have and to answer the questions they'll have for you. And if we don't get to your questions in real time, not to worry, we'll have some time at the close of the lesson specifically set aside for Q&A. We'll also want to make sure that we have some creative utensils handy for today as well. So paper, something to draw with, whether that's crayons, markers, colored pencils, because we're going to have the opportunity to participate in a craft later on today as well. And you'll want to have those cameras at the ready as well, because toward the end of the lesson, you'll have the opportunity to lean into the screen and pose for a selfie with one of the creatures we'll be meeting today. And if you tag Varsity Tutors and Flamingo Gardens on Instagram, you'll have the opportunity to win a wildlife children's book as well as a wildlife creature camp membership. Now, we'll talk more about that prize and the specifics on how to enter as we get a little bit later on in the lesson. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Flamingo Gardens educator, Miranda. Miranda, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Miss Miranda, and I am here with Flamingo Gardens. I am coming to you from South Florida. And I hear we are having people from all over the country. So it's really exciting that we are able to visit you all the way from Flamingo Gardens in South Florida. Now, to give you a little idea before we jump into our lesson to what Flamingo Gardens is, we are a wildlife sanctuary and botanical garden. So we have plants and animals that mostly our animals are native species of Florida, and we have plants that have come from all over the world. The botanical garden side of Flamingo Gardens means that here we have on our large property, like I said, plants that have been here, some of them over 100 years old, that have been brought from Africa and Asia and South America. Lots of really cool tropical plants. On the animal side, which is our wildlife sanctuary side, we have a lot of animals that are native to Florida. These include Florida panther, alligator, flamingos, a variety species of wading birds like egrets and herons, including birds of prey, so vultures, hawks, eagles. We also have opossums, raccoons, a black bear, otters, lots of animals that call Flamingo Gardens their home. But what makes us a little different from a zoo is that as a wildlife sanctuary, we are more of a resting place for animals that cannot be released back into the wild for various reasons. This includes if they were injured in the wild, or if they got sick, or even what we call human imprinted, where they were taken from the wild as a baby and never learned how to survive. So many of our animals that are here for those reasons. They either were taken when they were too young, or some of them have permanent injuries, including one of the animals we will be meeting today during our alligator meet and greet. So don't worry though, if you see any animals that seem like they have, a missing arm or any sorts of injuries, those are healed. They are happy and healthy here at Flamingo Gardens, just a little bit handicapped, and that's why they can't live out in the wild. All right, so today we are going to be learning about alligators. So I'm going to start off with a fun little book that I'm going to read along, and I want you guys to follow along with me. And this book is just a fun story about alligators. I'm going to be reading a book to you called The Swamp Where Gator Hides by Marianne Burks, illustrated by Roberta Baird. This is the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the turtle who takes a snooze, ignoring the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the snake who slithers around past the turtle, taking a snooze, ignoring the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the frog with a rumbling sound, eyeing the snake who slithers around, past the turtle taking a snooze, ignoring the duck who paddles in ooze, under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the deer who grazes nearby, the bullfrog with a rumbling sound, eyeing the snake who slithers around, past the turtle taking a snooze, ignoring the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the egret nesting up high, who watches the deer grazing nearby. The bullfrog with a rumbling sound, eyeing the snake who slithers around. Past the turtle taking a snooze, ignoring the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the vole who peeks from a hole to see the egret nesting up high, who watches the deer grazing nearby. The bullfrog with a rumbling sound, eyeing the snake who slithers around. Past the turtle taking a snooze, ignoring the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the bobcat taking a stroll, who stalks the vole, who peeks from a hole to see the egret nesting up high, who watches the deer grazing nearby, the bullfrog with a rumbling sound, eyeing the snake who slithers around, past the turtle taking a snooze, ignoring the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator hides. This is the sunfish who scoots away when gator comes out to catch his prey. Who will he have for lunch today? Is it the bobcat who took a stroll, or the vole who peeked from a hole? Is it the egret nesting up high, or the deer grazing nearby? Is it the frog with a rumbling sound, or the snake who slithers around? Is it the turtle taking a snooze, or the duck who paddles in ooze under the algae that carpets the swamp where gator no longer hides? All right, and that is the end. Snap! Just to give you guys a little explanation about an intro into this little book. I'm not going to read all that information, but I'll hold it up just for this moment if you guys want to look through it. But I'm going to just tell you a little synopsis of what this information is talking about. And it's describing what a swamp is like. Here in South Florida, we have what is called the Florida Everglades. It is a warm, wet, subtropical climate here in Florida that allows the Florida Everglades to exist. And in this environment, it's kind of what we describe as a river of grass. The Everglades does have some trees in it, but it's mostly made up of sawgrass. And here in Florida, we have two types of seasons, wet and dry seasons. Right now, we are entering our wet season here in Florida, so that means rain almost every other day. And that fills up the Everglades with lots of water and is where many of the alligators here in South Florida love to hang out. All right, so that was our storybook about the alligator, an introduction to a little bit of the environment that the alligator lives in. And all of those animals that we saw in the book are all animals that live here in South Florida in the Florida Everglades. But we are going to be focusing in today specifically on our American alligator. So I now have a little presentation I will be sharing with you guys, and we're going to learn more about alligators. All righty. So first and foremost, let's talk about how we can ID an alligator. What are some of their physical characteristics? The biggest thing is that these guys have elongated snouts with very powerful jaws. In fact, an alligator can actually close its jaw with much more strength than it can open. And that's why sometimes when you've seen people transferring or handling alligators, they'll tape the alligator's mouth shut, because the alligator they don't have a lot of strength when it comes to opening their mouth, but when it comes to closing it, they're very powerful. They also have an extremely muscular tail. Nearly to the tip of their tail is all pure muscle. And with that, these guys use their tail to splash water, to smack other alligators, or even smack other things that are threatening them. They have large protective scales or scutes that cover their entire body. We'll learn more about those when we meet our alligator friend. They have what is considered a streamlined body. What that means is their body is designed for moving in a straight line when swimming in the water. They can put their arms and legs back and shoot straight like an arrow through the water. Their eyes and nostrils are positioned on top of their head, making them the best water hunters because their entire body can be submerged under the water, and all that pokes out are their eyes and their nostrils. Because while these guys spend a lot of time in water, they do need to breathe air. And they have what is called a nictitating membrane. That's something that has to do with their eye. And we're going to learn a little more about that when we meet our alligator friend. But mainly, the nictitating membrane is something that allows them to dive underwater and not have to fully close their eyes. Think of it as a built-in pair of goggles. Now, as we've known, alligators can be a little scary and they are territorial by nature, but they're never going to attack someone unless they feel like their territory or themselves feel threatened. So as long as you leave an alligator alone, it's not going to hurt you. Males have a territory or home range that they protect from other males, and they typically share their territory with several females. Females lay their eggs on land and will fiercely defend the nest. They do care for and protect the young until the young are old enough to defend themselves, but that's not for very long. The young don't stay with their parents for many, many years. They usually leave them after just a couple months and learn how to survive on their own. Now, there is a bellow that a alligator does, and here we have a video of Elvis, our American alligator. And I want everyone to listen very closely to the sound that he is going to make. Now, this is a sound that alligators will make when they are trying to attract females. Yeah, so once again, that is Elvis, one of our American alligators who we have here at Flamingo Gardens. And the top picture that we have is just a picture found from the wild. It is a female alligator protecting her nest. They build these mounds in the swamp where they pull up dirt, and that is how they build their nest. They bury their eggs under the ground. Now, feeding. Alligators are strictly carnivores, and they prefer to ambush their prey. As you guys see in this picture down at the bottom, like I was mentioning, what makes them such perfect hunters is that with their nostrils and their eyes positioned on top of their head, they can submerge their entire body so that all you see are just the tiny little eyes sticking out, and the nostrils are all the way at the tip end of this picture here that show so he can still get some breaths in. Now, alligators do something that's called a death roll. You can look up a video of this yourself, but it's an interesting way because alligators don't chew their food. We call it a death roll, but it's actually something alligators do to chew because they can't chew themselves. When we eat something, we usually have to chew it up till we can swallow it. Well, alligators don't really have jaws that function that way. They have to swallow their food whole. So when an alligator makes a kill of an animal that is much larger than it, that it cannot just swallow in one bite, what they typically do is they bite onto a piece of the body and they roll or spin in the water while holding on to a piece of the body, therefore ripping off the piece and then being able to swallow that chunk, because they can't really use their hands to rip pieces off and they can't really chew their food. So here we have a video of Priscilla, who's another of our American alligators, and you guys can see how she can swallow a whole chicken. She's getting a whole chicken that she's swallowing without any chewing. She just swallows it whole. So let's watch it. All right, that was pretty cool, right? Oh, so that will be and there we have our last little video here. So here we have the two pictures of Priscilla and Elvis. And one last thing I wanted to mention to you guys is about the Alligator Hole. Now, this is a great picture of one down on the bottom left. So American alligators here in the Everglades are considered keystone species. What that means is that they are extremely important to the survival of the Everglades ecosystem. If we did not have alligators, many animals would actually die here in Florida. And that's because while alligators are fierce apex predators who help keep, smaller animals in check by being a predator and eating them, they also actually provide homes for other animals during the dry season. Like I mentioned, here in Florida, we have two seasons, wet and dry. During the rainy season or the wet season, the Everglades is full of fresh water and animals can get drinks from wherever they want. But in the dry season, we will go months without rain and the Everglades dries up, so that there's only little pockets of water scattered around. These alligators are able to find these little pockets of water and they dig into the ground till they're able to form a small pond, like the picture that you see here. So they use their strong legs and tail to dig down into this pond to give themselves a source of water. And they also don't mind when other animals come to drink from the alligator hole. So, raccoons, opossums, bobcats, herons, egrets, they all come by to take a drink and live by the alligator hole during the dry season. If Florida did not have alligators, many animals, like I mentioned, would not survive the dry season because it is the alligators who dig the holes down into the ground to find the sources of water. You have one last little video here of some of the small young gators that we have here. All right. So that was a chance. That was our little presentation there for the American alligator. And now I think everyone is just about ready to meet an alligator. Are you guys ready over there?
I think we're ready if you guys are.
We having a little trouble hearing and
right, guys.
seeing
My
you.
name is Daniela, or you can call me Miss Danny. Let me know when we're ready.
Yeah, we're just making sure. We were having a little trouble hearing you, but
Here, can you guys hear me okay now?
yes, it looks like it's good.
All right, we're all set to go then. All right, I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Daniela, but you guys can call me Miss Danny today. And I have the pleasure of introducing you guys to one of our American alligators here that lives at Flamingo Gardens that I get to take care of every single day. And he goes by the name of Mack, the American alligator. Now, Mack is going to be one of our great animal ambassadors here at Flamingo Gardens. As Miss Miranda had mentioned earlier, all of our animals that you see here at our park have some type of injury, whether it be a missing wing, missing eyes or limbs. And in Mack's case here, he's missing that bottom portion of his jaw. He does not have half of that bottom jaw. So what you guys are actually seeing hanging out of his mouth there is an alligator's tongue. It's pretty crazy, right? It's not often you get to see an alligator's tongue without losing a finger in the process. Now, we think that that accident happened to him when he was a lot younger as a baby. He was probably fighting over some food or just got into it with another small alligator about his size, or maybe even an alligator snapping turtle. And what they did was actually rip off that jaw without a problem. And luckily, somebody found this little baby with that injury, brought him to our park here, where we've been raising him for the last 3.5 years. So he was very fortunate to be brought here, because without that jaw, he's actually unable to eat on his own. We have to assist him every time we go to feed him. We do that by actually cutting up small pieces of meat, and we will insert that piece of meat into the back of the throat there where that hole is. That's actually the opening of his throat. And as Miss Miranda mentioned earlier as well, these guys don't actually chew their food, they do swallow whole. So we cut the pieces small enough, and once it reaches the back of the throat, he pretty much does the rest of the work on his own. So as he gets bigger, it's going to get very, very interesting. If anything, we've been working with him as a small gator to do target training, kind of like that video that you guys saw, the last video where that alligator came to the food. We're doing that with this gator as well, because he's going to need to be able to know where to stand and where to expect the food, rather than us being able to hold him when he's a lot larger, like something like Elvis's size. It's going to be quite difficult, but we're up for the challenge. We're not able to get him any type of plastic surgery. A lot of people like to ask, why don't we get him some type of replacement jaw? And that's because where the injury actually occurred, there's nothing for us to be able to attach up jaw replacement cut, or too much of them there. So for now, this is what's working for us. But a little bit more about Mack as an American alligator and what makes them so special. So here in Florida, these guys are also going to be known as apex predators, which means that they're going to be they have a very big responsibility of helping us keep population control of all the other species running around in the Everglades. So with that, these guys are going to need some sharp teeth, right, to be able to eat. So you know that alligators are going to have about 80 teeth, but they will go through hundreds and hundreds of teeth in their lifetime, which is pretty cool, without ever having to go to the dentist, getting veneers, none of that. These guys actually will just generate new teeth. So once they lose some, you can actually notice that Mack there is missing one in the front. He's going to be actually pushing through. I think he lost that tooth about a week ago, actually. I was here when it happened. You can actually see that new tooth kind of penetrating through a little bit, the tip of it. So probably in another week or 2 weeks, that brand new tooth will be there. So these guys don't have any issues with anything like that. They'll never need any dentures. Now, alligators have some really cool features on their face as well that we can see up close with this guy. If you guys notice, he just closed his eye, and when he opened it back up, he has an eyelid that goes from side to side. Of course, he's going to keep it shut now. Saw that? That's like a dinosaur, right? That eyelid or that extra eyelid is called a nectating membrane. So that eyelid actually will cover his eyeball to protect him when he's in the water. So it works like a pair of underwater goggles that are already built in for the alligators, because they might spend just as much time in the water as they do on land sometimes. So it's a really important tool that they need in order to survive. Now, another cool thing about alligators will be the shape of their head. The shape of their head is going to be what's able to distinguish them between them and crocodiles, because here in Florida, we actually inhabit both alligators and crocodiles in our waters because we have both fresh and salt water. So we are one of the few places in the world that will have both. So it's definitely good to know which one you might be encountering if you do come across one of these guys. Alligators tend to be a little bit less aggressive than the crocodiles. So not that you shouldn't be scared of these guys, but you have less to worry about if you do run into an alligator versus a crocodile. Alligators are going to have a lot more of a U-shaped snout where it's a lot more rounded at the tip there, while crocodiles are going to have a lot more of a pointed snout or more of a V shape. Also, on a regular alligator's mouth, when they have their mouth shut, you would only be able to see the top portion of those teeth, as you could see on this side. But a crocodile, you would see all of their teeth penetrating from the top and bottom rows, kind of with their mouth shut there. You would still be able to see both top and bottom rows of teeth. Also, their coloration. Crocodiles get a lot brighter of yellows and greens, while alligators, as they're babies, they're going to actually start to lose these yellow bright stripes. And when they grow into adults, they're actually going to be a solid dark color, a mix of blacks and browns and dark greens. And that's because they need that in order to camouflage in a lot of the murky waters and swamps that they like to live in. Now, another feature about alligators, what makes them so special, I love their feet. Check out these really cool toes on these alligators. So you're going to notice some web toes for their swimming abilities. You're going to notice some nails on there so they can dig and they can climb excellently. You're going to notice a couple toes without nails, and that's not by accident. The alligators actually will have toes without nails naturally because these are actually a lot more sensitive of toes than the other ones. They kind of work like little antennas to help the alligator get a better feel for his surroundings and what's going on in his environment. So those toes are very important, and that's why they don't have nails. Alligators are going to have these really rough and bumpy textures going up and down their backs. And I wish you guys could feel it because it feels very, very cool. Again, it feels almost dinosaur-like. Now, these bumps are called scutes or exioderms. These scutes and exioderms are going to be bone-like plates that the alligator uses for many reasons. One might be for protection when they get into battles with other animals, other reptiles, other alligators sometimes, in order to defend territory or to defend food, for example. They will use that, and they would actually be able to take a lot of blows because of those scutes will be protecting them like body armor. But the scutes are also serving another important purpose, that these guys work as little solar panels for the alligator, which means that these alligators are going to be cold-blooded reptiles. So they rely a lot of their energy coming from the sun. The sun is the main source for these guys. So that's why we see alligators very often out there sunbathing or tanning, as I like to say, because they're soaking up all the sun rays and conserving that energy later on for when they want to be on the hunt, if they want to move territory, or if they want to go mate, for example. But all of that starts by using these scutes on their backs. It's very, very important for these guys. Now, I also heard Miss Miranda mentioning their strong tails. You might even notice that he's been kind of winding it up a little bit as they've been holding him, because he tends to be very relaxed 1 minute. And then if I move a little way that he doesn't like, he kind of gets very, very tense, and he lets me know that he's uncomfortable and that he's going to whack me. And then he relaxes his tail again. He just did it right now for you guys. I don't know if you noticed. A second ago, it was curled up and now it's relaxed again. Now, this tail is a lot of muscle, and there are scutes on this tail as well. So if and when he wants to use this for protection or for swimming purposes, because he's going to need that tail to kind of work like a paddle for him, that tail is comes with a lot of power. This is what definitely is almost like another weapon for these alligators. If you're not dealing with the mouth region, you always got to be careful with that tail because it can knock you on your feet just as quickly. All right, guys. Now, Mack here is an ambassador species, as I mentioned, meaning that he's been here a majority of his life And he's very used to being handled by people like me and our other animal care caretakers here at Flamingo Gardens. We work with him very, very often on top of hand feeding him. So we're able to work with him closely like this. And, you know, we understand how to read him and that he's comfortable when we're holding him. He might have moments that he's upset and doesn't want to be handled. And we respect that when it comes to, you know, giving him his space and knowing that we need to leave him alone. If you were to ever come across an alligator in the wild, wherever you are in the United States, if you happen to come across an alligator, I do not encourage you guys to try to go and handle an alligator the way I'm holding my buddy Mack here. That's not a very safe situation. Alligators are always great to appreciate from a very, very safe distance. I promise you can get some awesome photos from a safe distance, okay? Now, alligators, whether it be a mom or just another alligator out there, will protect their territory and they will protect their babies. So if you get too close, you better believe that these guys are ready to put up a fight. They can run up to 15 miles an hour on land. They can swim just as fast. They might not have as much energy to exert, but still, you do not want to be caught in the crossfires of an alligator chasing you. Now, living here in Florida, we were also taught that if an alligator is ever chasing you, that you're supposed to run zigzag away from these guys. And if you've ever heard of that from wherever you are watching this, I'm here to tell you that that is not true. You do not want to run zigzag away from an alligator. Running zigzag from an alligator might actually make it better for the alligator to spot you, because as you guys notice, the alligator is going to have eyeballs located on both sides of his head. So if you're running zigzag, you're actually in his view. If you were to focus on running straight, you'll be okay. And you're going to have a lot better of a chance of getting away from that alligator as long as you're just sprinting straight, or just be faster than your friends. That's what I always say. But all joking aside, alligators are such a magnificent animal. They're so important to our Florida Everglades. Without them and being the keystone species that they are, if they were to ever be extinct or to go away for whatever reason, we would most likely lose our Florida Everglades, because our Florida Everglades thrive from the well-being of our alligators and the population of our alligators living there. So we're very, very fortunate to have these guys around. Now, in a second here, we're going to get some really awesome selfies. If you'd like to take an up close and personal photo with my buddy Mack here, he loves to smile for photos. So if you would like to get ready to do that, we're going to do that in just a couple seconds here, let you guys get situated and get your cameras ready. I'm going to give you guys about 5 more seconds to get your cameras and yourselves situated. And then we're going to get an awesome selfie with my buddy Mack here before I pass it back to Miss Miranda for a minute. So on the count of 3, we're going to go back here and we're going to do a photo on the count of 3. Ready?
Just a moment, Danny. Haley does have something to introduce.
Sure.
Okay, not a problem, guys.
Go ahead and jump right on in with that selfie, everyone. Lean into the screen. And as you're doing so, or to give you just a moment to get those cameras ready, as a reminder, if you post those selfies on Instagram and you tag us here at Varsity Tutors, as well as Flamingo Gardens, you'll have an opportunity to win a copy of the children's book we got to take a look at, The Swamp Where Gator Hides, as well as a membership to the Wildlife Creature Camp. Now, this camp series is a 1-week camp in which students will have the opportunity to learn from experts, complete unplugged and after camp challenges, and receive specialized content from our camp guest celebrities on all sorts of creatures. Now, with that in mind, we'll give you guys just a couple more moments for photos with Mack. And thank you so much, Danny.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we got to put all that in there. I want to enter in the contest here. Here you go, guys. Let me know when you're ready, okay? We're going to do it on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And if you guys want to do both sides, that's his good side, but we'll do the other side as well. Give you guys just another second there to get situated. On the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to pass it back to Miss Miranda. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Danny and Mack. Now we will be jumping back over to them for just a little bit for some Q&A, but for now, we're just going to bring it back in and we're going to do a little bit of a craft together. So for this craft, all you guys need is some paper, a drawing utensil of your choice, You guys can use, I'll be using crayons today. And what we are going to do is I want everyone to have a chance to try and draw their best alligator. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, if I'm drawing an alligator, what do I need to do? Well, I'm going to draw the first part and then I'll show you guys. But the biggest part when you want to draw an alligator is I'm going to be drawing mine as if we're looking at it from a bird's eye view. All right. So remember when we talked about alligators, they have the U-shaped snout. So when we're drawing our alligator, I'm going to start with the head and I'm just going to start by making a U shape. Very simple, U-shaped head. That is their snout. So, like I said, just starting with a U. Once you've gone from the U, we're going to bring it back in, narrow your U in almost to the point, not where it's coming together, but just a little bit apart. You're coming in for the neck. Then once we've come in for the neck, we're gonna go way back out because if you guys notice, alligators kind of look like they've got kind of big stomachs going on. A well-fed alligator always looks a little bit chunky, but they're nice, wide stomachs. All right, so kind of did the U-shaped, came back together, and now we're gonna quickly taper it off at the end and draw our long, muscular, pointy tail. All right, that is the general body shape of the gator. Now what we're going to add on are some of our limbs here. And how many toes, if we can see, how many toes do our alligators have? There you guys can see over at the image there, some of their toes. And don't forget, one of their toes doesn't have a nail on it. All right, so we're going to draw some of our alligator legs here. Now, some of you are probably coming up with much better drawings than I am. The limbs aren't matching, but that's okay. He's got a real big thumb. That's all that matters. All right, now we're gonna draw those big back legs. And once you guys have your legs drawn on your gator, the next thing we need to add are the little details. First and foremost, we've got the nostrils and the eyes that start on the top of the head. So here, since we're doing a bird's eye view from our gator here, we're gonna I'm gonna do two little pinpricks for the nostrils, and those nostrils are right at the tip of the nose there, as you guys can see. And then the eyes, from a bird's eye view, you guys can just kind of draw the lines on the top of the head where their eyeballs would be. They have ridges right above their eyes. Alligator. Perfect. And then the next thing is we got to give this guy some texture. As you guys have noticed, that the alligators have a lot of different types of their scutes and their all along their body. They had thicker ones kind of down the middle here, down the tail, and then thinner ones on the side. So let's go ahead and draw some of those in. So those you can just draw by doing a bunch of little squares all the way down the body, because that's kind of what they look like. And I'm going to draw bigger ones right down the middle because those were the bigger scutes. And then the other ones are kind of almost like tiny little dots all along the side in rows. As you guys can see, starting to draw some of those and all the way down the tail. right. And there you have your alligator. Awesome. Now, as everyone's working on their drawing, now would be a great time if we have any questions that we can facilitate through us that I'm sure Miss Danny would love to answer.
I'm here to answer any questions you guys might have, so feel free to ask away for me and Mac.
We have so many wonderful questions that have come in from students. And I actually want to start with a question that's come in from quite a few folks around who it is that's joining us in that background noise that we're hearing. So who else do we have here guest starring?
So here at Flamingo Gardens, we're home to an array of different animals, but some of the residents that have made themselves home here are our lovely peacocks. We have peacocks, pea hens, and pea chicks hanging around here right now. It is baby season and mating season. So these guys are extra chatty. If you're walking through our park, you're going to see beautiful, colorful males with all of their feathers out. And they're making a lot of mating calls lately because they have some beautiful women walking around here that they want to attract and have some more babies with. So we just have constant chatting, constant noise throughout the park from when we open to close because it's their time to shine.
Well, it certainly seems like they are thriving and happy to get to communicate with one another along the way.
Yes.
On a similar question, we also had some students who were wondering, do all of these different species that you spoke about under your care, do they live in the same spaces? Are they in separate spaces under your care?
So if and when you guys ever have the chance to visit our park, you're going to notice that we do have our animals in different sections based on who they are and who would maybe get along being neighbors with the other. We don't have the alligators hanging out by any of our panthers, for example, because the panthers would probably be a little bit weary of an alligator and the alligators would be very alert that there's constantly a panther around. So our alligators tend to kind of have their own little island, their own little section of where they hang out, Elvis and Priscilla, them being our biggest gators here at the park. But around them and in the area, we do have our flamingo sections. We have our wading bird section. We do have an aviary section that's completely off from the alligators so that they're not constantly, wondering what all those birds flying around are like. But we have an aviary section. We have a hawk walk. We have a bobcat enclosure. We have a black bear. All of these guys are going to be hanging around the park in different areas along with other peacocks, as I mentioned, but we also have some cats that like to hang around on property. We have a rooster named Santa who's always hanging around and saying hello to guests. So for the most part, everybody has their place and their home of where they like to sleep at nighttime. But some of the animals that might not be in their enclosures do have freedom throughout the park to kind of wander in and out wherever they like to. So it's a mixture of a free-for-all, and yet we do have our separate enclosures.
Of course. So freedom to roam, but safely around those other species.
Everyone's aware of their neighbors.
Absolutely. We got to see a little bit around what some of the gators, both, smaller baby gators and some of the older gators got to eat. But students were very curious. What else do gators eat? Do they eat the same things in the wild that they eat there at the sanctuary? So could you speak a little more to what those gators like to munch on?
So that's going to be a great question. So here at Flamingo Gardens, we definitely want to incorporate just as much of a similar diet to what these guys would experience in the wild, because that's what's going to help the alligator do their best when living here at the sanctuary. So in the wild, them being the apex predators, as I mentioned, these guys will eat just about anything they can get their mouths on. So in the wild, it can be turtles, it can be smaller birds, mammals. Sometimes they might even eat other alligators. It's kind of crazy that there's really nothing that these guys are limited to, and they don't really have any other bigger predators to be worrying about. It's really that they're more opportunistic eaters, so that they have to really wait around for their food and wait for the opportunity to strike to actually get a meal. The difference when living here at Flamingo Gardens is that they don't really have to wonder if they're going to get a meal or not. they're pretty much guaranteed a meal when it's their time to eat because they're on a schedule. And again, we want to see them grow and be very, very healthy. So we're going to feed them a variety of different meats as well. Not necessarily a turtle, but we're going to feed them chicken and beef. And sometimes we have some fish that we like to incorporate because they're going to eat a lot of fish too, living in the wild. So we'll put some fish in their diet. We definitely like to hit a lot of the main sources of their diet in the wild, but definitely if they were to live, in the Everglades on their own, they're going to be trying to eat literally anything they come across. There's no limit to that versus here. They don't really have to worry about really fighting for a meal or wondering if they're going to eat on a day-to-day basis, or a month-to-month basis, because these guys don't actually need to eat every single day. Them being cold-blooded reptiles, these guys actually will eat maybe about once a week at this size. And as they're adults, they don't need to eat as many meals a week, but larger meals about once a month, because it takes them some time to actually process their food. So that's a big difference between the two.
Wow. So it certainly seems like they are living quite comfortably there. We had quite a few students, and you started to speak about this, but other than where we might find an alligator versus a crocodile, what are some other distinguishing features that let us know how we could tell the difference between the two?
So definitely, you never want to get too close to ever have to really see the details, because both can be very dangerous in the wild. But you definitely want to always look at the shape of the head. That's going to be the easiest giveaway. The shape of the head, it might be smaller. It might be harder to tell because he's a little bit smaller of a gator. But on much larger gators like Elvis, that is just a very easily U-shaped snout versus a crocodile. If you guys ever get the chance to see one, a lot more pointier, almost like an arrow tip. They have a very, very narrow snout. And then along that shape of the head, you're going to notice all of the teeth on a crocodile. You're going to notice those top and bottom teeth really sticking out, even with their mouths completely shut. You can see both rows versus alligators, which again, he might not be the best one to give an example because of that mouth injury. But you would notice that if he didn't have that tongue hanging out of his mouth, you would really only be able to notice that top row of teeth on the alligator. And then it's that coloration. These guys, while they're still young and babies, they'll have a little bit brighter of colors. But as they get older, you're going to start to notice that yellow going away on the patterns of their scales. And they actually get a very dark, solid black, brown, and dark green, while crocodiles will actually get more brighter in color as they get older. So brighter greens, yellow, beiges, for example, and that you'll notice from a mile away versus an adult alligator that might actually blend in or might actually camouflage a lot better, depending on what kind of body of water you're looking at. But you're going to also notice a difference in temperament, because alligators, although they are very dangerous and can be very dangerous, they're not going to be as territorial. They're not going to be as common to want to really chase after you or strike at you first. You really have to step past a boundary for them to really want to actually react to trying to get you away. Versus crocodiles, I mean, they are actually a lot more flexible. They're actually able to turn their bodies at a lot more of a rotation, so they could be a lot more dangerous in that sense, that they can actually bite. If you're at the tip of their tail, they're able to fling their bodies all the way around and they can get you just even standing very far back. But they're going to be a lot more aggressive. They're known to be a lot more territorial. They have a lot less short of a temper or a fuse and an upset temper, that you do not want to find yourself in the crossfires of a crocodile, because they're most likely going to be the ones to be really trying to chase you out of the area. They're quite dangerous.
Understood. So the main takeaway there is, if you encounter something that could be an alligator or a crocodile, it's probably not priority number one to figure out which one. So
exactly. Get a photo from a safe distance and get out of there. And then later you can analyze it and try to figure out which one you were encountering. That's what I always suggest.
Absolutely. Very much agreed. No, we had you tell us a little bit about the fact that all of the animals under your care at the sanctuary have some sort of a disability where they need to be cared for. Now, could you talk a little bit about how those animals come to make their way to you?
Absolutely. So it's definitely with the awesome help of our community, people knowing who we are here in Broward County. We do have some really also some really awesome wildlife sanctuaries in the area as well, but we really do try to specialize in South Florida wildlife, and we've been around for many, many years that people who have maybe never visited our park still know that we are a wildlife rehabilitation center. Apart from our beautiful, gardens that we have that people sometimes think we don't have any animals, they come and experience our Flamingo Gardens and they see all of the beautiful wildlife that we have here. And then they come to find out that we're also a sanctuary, a rehabilitation center. We don't just have animals here on display just because. They do a really good job at spreading that message around to our community that if and when somebody comes across an injured baby bird or they come across an injured snake, anything really, because we have just about everything under the Florida sun that lives here. They do a really awesome job at collecting that animal safely, given the situation, whether it be, something hit in the middle of the road or, something that is found in their backyards. They do a good job at gathering that animal, putting it in some type of carrier and bringing it here to our gardens where, they can drop them off at the gift shop. They walkie-talkie us, the animal care, that we have a baby, we have an injured something up in front, to please come get it. And then they get to come down here to our animal clinic where we assess the situation. So most importantly, any animal that comes through our doors, our goal is to try to get them back into the wild. We want to see every animal get better, heal, and go back to their normal lives. But sometimes the injuries are going to be too severe that they cannot go back to normal, that they're going to be permanent injuries that we cannot fix. And instead of, not having a second chance at life in the wild, they get a second chance at life living here in the gardens where they have people who get to take care of them, who really love them, who care for them. This is what we dedicate our lives to doing. So we really try to still give them the best quality of life, even though they have to live, maybe not in the wild, but we try to keep it as wild here as possible.
Absolutely. And that almost couldn't be a more perfect segue to my next question from students, which is how can students who are interested in wildlife care and rescue, get more involved to take on roles such as the ones that you have?
I love that question because it wasn't that long ago that I was that student asking that question. Any opportunity I got to meet an animal handler, somebody at the zoo, whatever it might be, I was always asking, how do I get to do what you're doing? And the most common answer is going to be to go to school for it. Make sure you're getting, the right kind of education in the field that you want to pursue. Nothing is better than a college degree that's going to get you a lot quicker, a lot faster to what you want to do. But sometimes if you're trying to still build maybe or do baby steps before getting to college, if you're 13 and wanting to get your hands on now and your experience in now, you can always volunteer. I always talk about volunteering because we always need the help. Places like sanctuaries, we always need extra hands around. And that's a great opportunity for you to get to work up close and personal, not just with the animals, but with the people who are dedicating their lives every day to working with these animals. And you're going to learn so much from volunteering some of your extra time in these animal sanctuaries and these wildlife clinics and stuff like that. There's nothing better than actual experience, in-person experience. And it's a great way to really use some of your free time because you're getting to help some animals and help the people who want to help the animals. So definitely look into volunteering, but then also continue with school to go into some wildlife programs and, go towards a degree for wildlife.
Wow, thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
We had a couple of questions about some of those other animals under your care, some of the animals that we're hearing in the background. And one thing I would very strongly encourage the students to do is if you didn't get a chance to check out Flamingo Gardens' first lesson, it is on our YouTube page and available to view so that you guys can get a closer look in and get to meet Sugarcane and James, as well as Mack here today. But I do want to make sure that we are being respectful of your time. So we'll just kind of close things off with one more quick question. And that is just any final thoughts that you have for students, whether they're interested in volunteering and learning more, or just interested in learning more about wildlife as a whole.
Yes, absolutely. No matter where you are in the United States watching this, there's going to be animals in your area needing help, needing someone to care for them if they do get hurt, if they do get some kind of injury. So definitely make yourselves aware of what's in your area, what local shelters that might be around, so that if and when you ever do come across a situation that you might be the one who finds an injured animal, you're not panicking, you don't know what to do. You're going to be fully aware of where to go, who to call, what to do in those situations. And if you like those people and the work that they do, you can look into volunteering there, because I can guarantee just about anywhere with animals is going to be taking volunteers. So you guys are the future. These animals rely on you guys just as much as they rely on us here at the clinics. It's up to you guys to stay educated and to want to continue caring about the well-being of all of our animals here and all of their ecosystems. They rely on you guys too, okay? So make sure to get involved whenever you can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much once again to both Miss Danny and Miss Miranda, and of course, to our very special guest star, Mack. That's all the time that we have for today, but thank you so much both to the entire team at Flamingo Gardens, but also to those of you who tuned in live, who asked such thoughtful questions and who participated. We hope to see some of those pictures of your craft as well when we see those Instagram posts. In the meantime, we do hope to see you back in another Varsity Tutors Star course sometime soon, and don't forget to post those selfies and tag us at Varsity Tutors and Flamingo Gardens to win. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye. Bye, everyone.